Hello again, and welcome to another new type of video for me. So while you watch me play Minecraft on screen, it's an old video, there's a bit of inception going on. It's just how my setup is right now. While you watch that, I'll be reading a post from r/am_I_the_a-hole on Reddit. I'm going to read a couple of comments, but I'm also going to provide my commentary. I felt like I can relate very much to this one and wanted to start with this one. So, this is from Modest Matriarch. Am I the a-hole? My dad reprimanded me for spending Mother's Day with just my husband and my daughter. I, 26 female, always sought approval from my parents when I was growing up. If I wasn't living up to their standards, I was made to feel like I was absolute dog. My husband, 28 male, and I got married at the beginning of 2023. We had our daughter just over a year later in 2024. My parents are moving 1,300 miles away at some point this year, some point soon, as their house is already on the market. We bought our home last year after strongly considering their advice to stay here, since we have family here and thus would have, quote, help. Instead of moving to another state we would much prefer to live in, and being wrong. Not blaming them, we're adults, bought a home that suited us for now, but I'm just saying a huge factor of us staying in this state is that my parents live about an hour away, as do my in-laws. All of this is relevant for context because today is Mother's Day, likely the last one that my parents will be within driving distance of us. I called my mom this morning to wish her a happy Mother's Day. She asked me what my plans are today and said absolutely nothing but spending quality time with my husband and my daughter. We do have a contractor coming to our house to repair a quote for some work we need to get done, which I told her. About 20 minutes later, I get the following text from my dad. You weren't raised the way you've been behaving. You only have one mother. You're 75 minutes away, not halfway around the world. A phone call, one day of the year, it's Mother's Day, with 4 exclamation points. I love you very much. Have a wonderful day. We'll say no more about it. You're adult, wife, mother, daughter, etc. I'll be honest, the first thing that went through my mind was to say, F you. Nothing like sending a reprimanding text to wish me a happy Mother's Day. Then I just started crying because this is the same thing they always do. They don't prefer a choice I made about my own life, so now they want to guilt me into doing what they want me to do. They did this when we told them we wanted to move across country to another state. They have done this throughout my entire life. Well, I'm at the point where I don't want to be manipulated anymore. My life does not revolve around them. I have my own little family who I have a duty and obligation to. Nobody is entitled to my time except for my husband and my daughter. I don't believe that parents have the same rights their kids have to their parents. Said differently, my daughter owes me absolutely nothing, but I owe her everything. In contrast, my mother-in-law texted me this morning, Happy Mother's Day, do you want our help today? You know, offering to babysit for us so I could spend some alone time with my husband if I wanted to. There is a stark contrast here, which is why I think maybe I'm not the a-hole. I don't know how to respond, so I haven't. A part of me wants to be a smartass and just screenshot the search results for Grandparents' Day and send solely the screenshot in response. So I'm going to read the comments that stood out to me as well. But I just wanted to comment on this because even though I'm not a mother, I have experienced being a daughter in this type of situation. And the first thing that caught my attention was they seemed to have a pleasant conversation. She called her mother and wished her a happy Mother's Day. There was no discussion of plans. Nobody made prior arrangements for them to hang out together. Mother didn't tell the OP that she wanted to do anything else, that she was disappointed there was nothing else. But somehow, Dad gets it in his mind, probably because of the mother, but we don't know that. We weren't part of that conversation. But Dad gets it in his mind that that's not good enough. So he sends a message that is worded in such a way that seems to provoke guilt. It seems to want her to feel badly about the way that she spoke to her mother that day. And I don't see anything wrong if if OP's narrative is to be trusted, which I am more inclined to believe OP because I have experience in that position, I do know a lot of mothers who understand this position as well. If the mother had a problem with the way that conversation went down, the mother should have said it directly to OP. The mother should be having that conversation. That being said, I don't think there was anything wrong with that conversation. You're not the active mother. You have a grown child who doesn't need you every single day. And so it's great that your daughter remembered you and said Happy Mother's Day because she still cares about you, but she is actively parenting her younger child who still needs her mother day in and day out. If there shouldn't have to always be a choice, but if there has to be a choice, let's lean on the one who is actively parenting and relied upon every single day. I really don't see how hanging out and spending the day with your husband and child is a problem, especially when you haven't discussed anything else. What else were you expecting? These are tough times. Do you think that everybody just has money to throw on big expensive gifts? Were you expecting something to be sent to the door? How about you use your big girl words and tell your daughter that you would like those things? Hey, it made me a little sad that all I got was a phone call today. I would have liked to have seen you. I would have liked to have had a handmade card from you. How about use your big girl words? Put on your big girl panties and have a big girl conversation, and don't make your husband have these awkward conversations. That being said, Dad's not in the right here either. Dad should have either stayed out of it or encouraged them both to have a conversation together, and that might even include therapy. Just saying, therapy is healthy, therapy is good. Doesn't always have to include therapy, but Dad either needs to see his way out of the conversation or he needs to encourage them to have the conversation themselves. And I would rather he encourage them to have the conversation themselves, because I don't want him to skirt accountability as the parent here. But he really should not be communicating on behalf of his wife in this context, in these circumstances. She needs to use her big girl words and tell her daughter how she feels. The next thing is, this text was worded in a way that clearly shows he's upset, but then says, I'll say no more about it. Passive aggressive does not work. He's clearly trying to evoke an emotion from her and display his emotion, display his disapproval, but then he wants to cut it off and not have a response. You don't get to throw something out there and not get anything in return like this, especially when you're the parent. If you're gonna throw something out there, be prepared for response. Be prepared to accept any response, because your child is entitled to their own feelings, your child is entitled to their own thoughts, and they get to disagree with you, particularly about their own lives. For this to be a common theme in OP's life, again, something I relate to, something I can understand, and it means that this is how they communicate. This is how the parents communicate. They seem to have decided that healthy communication is out and guilt tripping is in. And as the parent, you should be the last person to use manipulation tactics on your kid. And a lot of people will try to say, well, it's tough love. You have to prepare them for the world. The world isn't going to be nice to them. Wrong. They need to have a safe place to come home to. They need to have safe people to come home to be themselves, to learn and make mistakes. If you're not the loving person in their life, they will go find a loving person in their life. And it's really sad when it can't be the parents, when the parents refuse to be the loving person in their lives. So, scrolling down to some of the comments, I wouldn't necessarily encourage actually sending some of these responses to the father, but I wholeheartedly agree with the thought process behind them, and if they make somebody smile, by all means. So, Sandpiper Crescent _Crescent says, not the a-hole. How about G, Dad? I love you too, and I am an adult with a daughter, so I'm being celebrated today by my little family. If you and Mom want to make plans with us on any particular day, let us know. XO. Very Gossip Girl signed off. But I agree with somebody else who said, it's Sandpiper _Crescent again, who replied to the OP, said, yeah, you certainly don't have to reply at all, and I think I'll edit the end to say, we just have to plan in advance instead of let us know, which I agree with. Put the accountability back on the parents. You're the ones who didn't communicate that you wanted to do something. I made plans with my family because my family and I communicated. My husband, my daughter, and I, we made these plans. You didn't communicate that you wanted to do anything with us. And I appreciate the edit to not say let us know, because that implies that they just have control over the whole meeting, and it should be, all the parties should be agreeing with what's going on. It shouldn't be somebody dictates to another. So I appreciate that edit, and I appreciate that response. Limitless Megan says, the thing that catches my attention is you started this by telling us you've always been chasing your parents' attention, which tells me they've starved you for it, and that this means they didn't make plans in advance for Mother's Day. Yes, like I said, and I appreciate that Limitless Megan called attention to this detail. They have starved OP for their attention, which is why OP can feel a challenge when trying to get their attention or having their attention. Oh, I have their attention now, I want to keep it, but this is not the type of attention that was desired. So I appreciate them calling that out, and they also comment that nobody made plans in advance, and as adults sometimes we like not having plans in advance. Maybe we should use our big girl words and plan in advance. Form Successful 1122 says, not the a-hole. My family's like this. It's all about my mom. The rest of us as mothers are like some afterthought. We're all supposed to give up our day to make sure hers is special. And I fully support trying to make Mom's Day special. I just don't see how one mother gets to decide for another mother how their day is spent. Even if that mother is your daughter, you don't get to decide how your daughter spends her day. If you wanted to do something with your daughter, you should have communicated that to your daughter. Have some accountability. Diminishing Patience says, who, by the way, I'm still learning Reddit, elder millennial here. They have a role, I think, in this community, in r/am I the a-hole. They are the judge, jury, and executioner. Don't come for me, that's just what it says. They've commented, not the a-hole, try not to be upset, that's exactly what she wants. The best way to get back at her is break the cycle. Be a good mother and have a great relationship with your child. And I really should have left this comment for last, because this hits the nail on the head completely. A reaction is the desire. They want the fight, almost, and they'll tell you that they don't. They want peace. They want it all. They want people to be under control, but if they can't have people under their control, they want the fight, because they want to seem righteous. They want to seem like everything is skewed in their favor, and that everyone should just see and understand how they're the good people, how they're the good ones in this argument. And they don't want them to look at OP, and they don't want them to see how OP's feelings are valid. Just ignore all that. Just focus on our feelings. And Big Fig 2705 comments, this is from the father, but Modest Matriarch confirms it's on behalf of my mom because my mom wouldn't directly say this to me. So we have confirmation from the OP that mom didn't say this to her directly, but it is common for mom to communicate to the father to communicate to the daughter. So Professional Field 508 says, not the a-hole, I have a rule that I go by for Mother's Day. New mothers always take precedence. If you can celebrate everyone happily, that's fine, but otherwise, with what the new mom wants is what should happen. I could see an exception being made for a mother who may not be around to see her next Mother's Day, but for the most part, celebrate the new moms. Sounds like your life might be easier once they move away. I agree with the idea behind this. Obviously, every situation is different. Sometimes there is time to celebrate everybody, and sometimes what everybody wants to do is be with each other. I know lots of families that do that, and that's perfectly valid. The key is to talk about it, to communicate, to say, hey, this is what I was thinking for Mother's Day. This is what I would really like. Are you open to that? Yes, we would love that too. That's the key. And if decisions have to be made to say, okay, well, this person can't hang out with us, we have to understand that they're going to go do their own thing, then let them go do their own thing. Monkey Biz BYZ says, not the a-hole, the mom who is actively mothering gets the day. Same kind of thing. They are active generation of mothers. No longer should the kids be dragged to the grandparents' house. I did that when my kids were small and never had my own day. I vowed it would be different when my kids became parents, and it is. Don't respond. They know where you live. Your mother-in-law has the right idea. She's awesome. Enjoy a guilt-free day with your hubby and little girl. Life is short. I agree with this. The message from Dad is not okay, and might be salvageable. This might be a relationship that's worth saving, but on this day, in this moment, that's not okay. And Dad might apologize and might start communicating better, and that's all great. But if Dad can't communicate better, maybe Dad doesn't get communication privileges anymore. If Mom can't communicate better, maybe Mom doesn't get communication privileges anymore. The daughter should not have to feel so uncomfortable after every conversation with the parent, even one conversation with the parent, partial conversations with the parents. The child should not have to feel this way, especially now that that child is their own mother and they're going to be passing these things on to their child. Oi with the poodles, I like these names, says, not the a-hole, they could just as easily plan to come see you on Mother's Day. Nothing needs to be said. I hope you're happier when they move. Enjoy your day, OP. I agree. No patience for crap, says not the a-hole. I would ignore the message and not respond. A response is what he's looking for, knowing he got under your skin. Enjoy your day with your own family. Obvious Diver 4086 says not the a-hole. It's a blessing they're moving. Probably. I agree that that's probably true. Mandy Z, MANDIEZIE1 says, not the a-hole, but now it's time to check your parents. Mother's Day is about all moms, not just her. You're a new mother and allowed to be celebrated. My mom initially had a hard time relinquishing the notion of being the mom, but I told her even before I had my kids, I'm the baby, that it isn't just about her, and everyone else is a mom now too and deserves to be celebrated. I wholeheartedly agree with this. Sometimes it's just about breaking habits. There are some parents who will never grow out of these habits, which is why some people have ended all communication with their parents. But sometimes it's about breaking that habit. Sometimes it's just about showing them a different way to communicate and working through the kinks and getting there. And they've just got to put in the work and learn how to communicate better. And it's a process. civil as an orange. There's no E, but their what I'm assuming is job title, mod role, I don't know, is certified proctologist. Not the a-hole. I'm an adult. I have no inch. This is in quotes. This is what they are suggesting is a response. I'm an adult. I have no interest in hearing your opinion on how I was or wasn't raised. I will not be contacting you again until I receive an apology for this tantrum, and I'm here for this. I am here for this. Again, it's about breaking bad habits, and it's okay to teach people how to treat you, and that includes your parents sometimes. Sometimes parents are just stuck in this authority role where they can't just be two adults living in the same city as their kid. It's I'm in charge and you're not, and it's hard for some of them to break that habit. But sometimes you gotta check yourself before you wreck yourself. I appreciate this comment. Consistent Pickle 88 says, not the a-hole. Your parents sound unreasonable and very entitled. I'm happy your in-laws are more understanding and supportive. This, I very much appreciate that OP has in-laws that are very supportive. And it helped to show the comparison for OP. OP said in the post that they thought this was a stark contrast, and that's why they think maybe they're not the a-hole, and they're not the a-hole. Idanowski, it's probably pronounced Idanowski, not the a-hole. They sound very self-centered, probably good they're moving. Let them be isolated. If you respond at all, I would tell them that if they had expectations, instead of being passive-aggressive, he could have talked to you beforehand. You aren't a mind reader. You're also a new mom, so why do you need to make it all about her? A nice text should be enough considering circumstances. They live an hour away. That takes extra planning. You also have a life, so screw them. And I agree with the mentality behind this. It's kind of the same that we've been talking about. Dad's text is passive-aggressive. They should have just used their big girl words and communicated. Maybe it's best that they leave and live somewhere else, and OP doesn't have to deal with this anymore. Biochemistry Bitch says, this is what you text back. You are so right, Dad. Your text showed me what is important. I'm an adult wife and mother now. My priority is my daughter. I'm going to spend the day making the one who made me a mom feel special and loved. Let me know when your house sells. Nothing like sending the same thinly veiled FU back to him in the same way he said it to you. I doubt he will see where he screwed up, though. You're a good mom. Sometimes going low, no context is the only choice when you have an abusive family. Focus on your family now. I just agree with these comments, and I just love a lot of these names. Miss Cannot Even. I appreciate this name, Miss Cannot Even. Not the a-hole. I would not reply back because it is highly unlikely to improve things. This is such a shitty way to handle things because they could have communicated expectations in advance. Not that you'd be obligated to comply, but it would at least be direct communication. You are in the freaking trenches right now and deserve to have a day about you. I'm very glad they're moving away. I agree. Again, I think it's breaking habits, and there are some people who can change their habits. There are some people who can put in the work, and some people who can learn to communicate differently. Not only the direct communication, but losing the manipulation and the guilt trip in the communication, losing the self-centered approach to it, which I'm all for. Put your own mask on before you help somebody else with theirs, but there's a difference between I've got my mask, do you have yours, versus how dare you not think of my mask. There's a huge difference in that. Lifey Dodge says, not the a-hole. 75-minute drive with a toddler can be a bit much. The road goes both directions. They could have gone to you. You're a mother now too. Again, the parents have some accountability in this. Why didn't they communicate? Why didn't they get in the car and go see them if they wanted to see them? Low Balance 4404, who is apparently the commander-in-chief, Cheeks, says, first of all, not the a-hole, and happy Mother's Day. And I feel bad that I've scrolled down so far and this is the first one to say happy Mother's Day. So OP, happy Mother's Day. I didn't say it right away either. I apologize. I hope you had a wonderful rest of your day. Second, I would respond, but not today. Don't think about this for another minute today. This is tomorrow's problem. If and when you do respond, I would tell them that you are a 26-year-old adult and you don't need his approval or his reprimands, and this is where you are drawing the line. This I appreciate so much because, first of all, not only are they agreeing that it is not OP's responsibility to respond today, you're an adult, you don't have to respond at all if you don't want to, but you get to set the timeline for the response. It doesn't have to be today, and you don't even have to come up with the timeline today. Today is about celebrating your motherhood and your daughter and your husband and spending that time together, and then getting the quote for the work that you have to have done, of course, because that was probably the only day that he could come by. But that problem doesn't even have to be figured out today. You don't have to figure out today when you're going to reply or what you're going to say. And it's tough. It's really tough to come up with a response or to think that you owe them a response, and it's really difficult sometimes to not reply immediately. If you're angry and you feel like you don't express your anger enough, it can be really difficult to hold back that anger and say, oh, I'm going to refine the way that I communicate this a bit and not just let them see all my anger. And if you're nervous, it can be hard to just let it sit and linger and build up the anxiety. But it is really important to do so. It's really important to take that step back and say, it's tomorrow's problem. Sometimes it's really important to make something a tomorrow problem. Don't do that with everything. We don't need to push everything off till tomorrow. But this is something that is absolutely okay to wait a day or two to respond. And if they message saying, hey, why don't I have a response, mute them. You don't have to block them, mute them. They don't get to guilt you. They don't get to control your feelings on this subject. You get to feel what you feel and figure out what you're feeling and get back to them on your timeline. So I appreciated this comment very much as well. Croft Survivor, who is the pooper intendant, says, not the a-hole, I would respond with, I'm spending my Mother's Day with people who actually care about me, and as for the guilt trip, I'm canceling my subscription. Have a great day. Now, I wouldn't throw the guilt trip back at them. I wouldn't say I'm spending my Mother's Day with people who actually care about me, because that's manipulating them right back. Although they probably deserve a dose of their own medicine, I personally wouldn't throw that back at them. I would like to get out of those trenches. However, I fully understand it. I fully understand wanting to send that part fully. I am in full agreement that the feels are there. I get it. I do fully agree with the second part. I'm canceling my subscription to your guilt trip. Have a great day. What I love about that is it's direct. It calls out the bullshit, and it puts the onus back on the dad and calls out the inappropriate communication. Calls it for what it is. It's a guilt trip. There's no room to argue. This is what it is. It's not, I kind of think it was, no. As for the guilt trip, I'm canceling my subscription. It also lets him know that it is absolutely not okay to communicate like that in the future. And while it is absolutely okay for dad to come back and ask questions and clarify, he's probably going to come back and argue with, I didn't, and you're misunderstanding. He's entitled to his feelings on it, but he's going to be wrong in this circumstance if he tries to say that it wasn't guilt trip, if it wasn't manipulation. This just gives that level of, I'm moved on. I don't have to have your approval for everything. I'm canceling my subscription to your guilt trips. I love that. about that. I don't know how to pronounce this one. LUJZA_BLAHA, the a-hole enthusiast, says, okay, hear me out. I'd pay a personal visit and say this. I'll be honest, the first thing that went through my mind was to say F you, which is directly from OP's post. They continue, nothing like sending a reprimanding text to wish me a happy Mother's Day, then I just started crying because this is the same thing you two always do. You don't prefer a choice I make about my own life, so now you want to guilt me into doing what you want me to do. You did this when we told you we wanted to move across the country to another state. You have done this throughout my entire life. Well, I'm at the point where I don't want to be manipulated anymore. My life does not revolve around you guys. I have my own little family who I have a duty and obligation to. Nobody is entitled to my time except for my husband and my daughter. I don't believe that parents have the same rights to their kids as kids have to their parents. Said differently, my daughter owes me absolutely nothing, but I owe her everything. I'll be in touch. And then I close the door on my way out and go about my day. And what I appreciate about this is they've taken it directly from OP's post. So these are OP's words. This is how OP feels. And OP is saying it to us, and OP is not saying it to their parents, which is part of the problem here. And while I fully understand, I've been there, it's very difficult to communicate those things directly to your parents, and maybe OP feels like they have communicated some of this. I feel like the point of this comment was very blatantly, everything you just said to us, throw it at them. It's meant for them. You said it about them. It's about what they've done to you through your whole life, how they've made you feel your whole life. And I think that that's important to not only bring to them, it gives them the opportunity to change those habits if they want to change those habits, but it also will give OP a real realization. If they don't want to change those habits, it's a lot easier to see it and call it out when you've said it plain as day. My life does not revolve around you. I have my own little family who I have a duty and obligation to. Nobody's entitled to my time. My daughter owes me absolutely nothing, but I owe her everything. If they don't want to look inward at themselves, if they don't want to see how they've contributed to this gap in the relationship, then that's on them, and it will be a lot easier for OP to accept that once they've had that direct communication. If they do want to change these bad habits, if they do want to keep their kid in their lives, this could be an eye-opener. This could open doors to have those conversations, but it should be said directly to them. The one edit that I would have, particularly with another commenter pointing out that it can be a hassle taking the toddler over an hour away, or maybe having somebody else watch the kid for over an hour because maybe you want your husband to come with you for support. Whatever that circumstance is, that starts to create a little bit of a difficulty. It's hard to just get in the car yourself and go. So what I would suggest is send it in an email or pick up the phone and say this over the phone to both of them. And then you also get to leave when you want to leave. You can hang up the call if it doesn't go well, and you get to hang up the call when you're ready to end the call. You can have that distance, and if you don't want to cry in front of them, if you don't want them to see you cry, or if you think that seeing their faces is going to make you cry and you don't want to do that while you have this direct communication, doing it over the phone might be better. So that would be my only edit to that, but otherwise I agree. Cold Sector 2718 says, not the a-hole. A passive-aggressive thumbs up would be my choice. Again, passive-aggressive is not what I would suggest, but I wholeheartedly understand the feelings behind that. And this might be something that somebody does if they've already done the direct communication. If they've already said, hey, these things bother me. I really don't feel comfortable with some of this communication. I would really like to talk more directly about these things. You make me feel like this sometimes when we discuss this. If those direct communications have been had and these kind of passive-aggressive texts still come along, maybe the thumbs up is a way to communicate without being deeply involved in the emotions of it, without taking on the burden of the feelings that they're trying to make you feel. Mysterious type 9096 says, not the a-hole. Why would she wait till the day of to make plans in the first place? If even a week ago she had said, this is likely my last Mother's Day in the area, I would like to see you and my grandchild, let's do brunch, you guys would have probably spent time together. Mother's Day is for all moms, but the matriarchs of the family should be the ones organizing if the men don't, because the newer moms are in the trenches of motherhood. The matriarchs don't usually do heavy-duty mom stuff on a daily basis anymore. So your dad is the biggest a-hole for not organizing Mother's Day for the women he made, for the woman he made a mother 26 years ago, and for the passive-aggressive text. Your mom is also an a-hole. She could have said something on the phone if she felt slighted and been an adult about it. She also could have organized something if she wanted something. When a mom has littles, they are not the a-hole for prioritizing their own Mother's Day. And I appreciate this one as well. It's a lot of the same, but they call out the fact that dad could have done the same. Dad could have communicated, hey, I think that you should do something with your mom. Why don't you and your daughter come over? Dad could have done something to organize this as well, but he didn't do anything to organize it. He's just listening to his wife complain that she's not happy, but none of them communicated what they wanted or needed and then put it all on OP on Mother's Day, no less. Happy Mother's Day, here's a guilt trip. That's not what I asked for Mother's Day, thank you. So the only other thing that I wanted to add to this, and this kind of segues into that, is if this were a mother-in-law, then I would find it the spouse's responsibility to do the communication. If your mother-in-law says that to you, if your mother-in-law has a nice conversation with you but tells the father-in-law, I wasn't happy with this, and makes the father-in-law guilt somebody, then the spouse needs to handle the communication with their own parents. So in this case, it would have been the husband. If the husband's parents had done this and guilt-tripped OP, then it's a husband's responsibility to communicate to his parents and say, that's not an okay way to speak to my wife. That's not an okay way to make her feel. If you wanted to do something, you could have told me or her well in advance. Use your big girl words and communicate something before you start making people feel bad because they wanted to just spend a quiet evening at home. So that's what I think. I want to know your thoughts. If you see this, if you read this, comment down below if you agree. I'll put the link in the description of the posts that I found. You can scroll through and see some of the comments. There's lots more comments that I didn't have time to read. But just let me know what you think. Let me know if you like our / posts, if you want me to do more. I just wanted to do this one because it stood out to me. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.